Welcome to JHart Modelworks. In this video, we will go over the body modifications for the Hasegawa Lamborghini Miura and getting everything prepared for painting. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started. So we're in the garage today. Family's making use of my desk. I've got a role-playing game that happens on Fridays. So looking at this body, I'm doing the body prep. There are mold seams right along these fenders. And it carries along across the front of the body. It also run right along this ridge here on both sides, which it looks like they've moved them because in a previous build that I've seen someone else do, they were sitting right along here. But they're not here. You can feel them. You can't really see them well, but you can feel it's just a little ridge. And it runs right along here and down through here as well. So to address these, I'm going to take my UMP Thinny sponge sander. I'm very carefully just sand. And what I'm doing, I'm not putting any real pressure down. I'm trying to follow the shape of the body panels. So I don't want to take this edge out. There's actually supposed to be an edge right here, so I don't want to reshape this. I just want to take and soften out that panel, that mold seam. And every so often, I'm just going to run across it with my finger until it doesn't feel, there's a rough edge. You can feel it. And you can feel it right along there. And if you just gently sand, and you're going to change direction. So I'm going to sand up and down, and then I'm going to sand across. Now the sponge sander, this Thinny sponge sander is going to basically follow the shape of my fender. And as long as I don't put a whole lot of pressure in here, it's not going to change the profile on this edge. But just to be sure, I want to follow as closely as I can. I'm not sanding straight diagonal, I sand up. And then I sand across. In doing that, we get rid of that rough edge, but we keep that fender shape. Same thing across this front ridge, just following the shape of the body. Sorry, this is a different camera angle I'm trying to get used to, so I know I'm going off camera a bit here and there. So we no longer have that sharp edge there. Again, kind of feel this, feel which direction it comes from, and sand across the top and follow the edge of the window. No pressure at all, just let the sander do all the work for you. And this is why I really love sponge sanders for this. Got that nice and smooth, and you still have that nice edge. It's not rounded off. Just gonna rub my fingernail across here just to make sure there's no rough edge. Still just a little bit here. And that's got that knocked out. So that takes care of all of my mold lines. Next thing I'm gonna do is address what I'm gonna do with the engine. Part of me wanted to go ahead and cut this open the way the actual body on the car does, but I don't want to run the risk of causing damage and not being able to finish the model because I can't afford right now to replace it if I botch it and buy a new one. So I'm going to kind of go about halfway. The louvers on this car have a little edge in here. So they glue in from the back just like that. And they sit just like that. Now what I plan to do is to cut these right along here. Very carefully cut right along that edge and cut this bottom off. I'm then going to take some thin strips of sheet styrene. They're not going to be nearly that wide, but basically just kind of just leave a little bit on here, maybe a millimeter sticking out. That way when I'm done, it'll just sit on there and sit in place. I made 2 marks at 4 millimeters in off the edge. I'm gonna line my metal ruler up along both marks. That should result in a fairly equal cut. Just gonna score this a couple of times. You don't have to cut all the way through. You just want to give it a good score. Got that line scored in there nice and straight. Bend it one way, bend it the other way, snaps off clean. Come back in with our Tamiya extra thin. Apply some to our plastic and apply some to edge right there. So we're going to take our knife and we're just going to scribe right into that corner. And you don't want to push too hard down on the part or you're going to bend and break these slats. So I've got these Tamiya razor blades. I'm not a fan of these. Every now and then they come in useful, but they're way too thin, they're way too flexible. So I like to score the edge first, give me a slight groove in the hopes that it will stay in place. And then it's just a matter of slowly taking your time and cutting these off. You want to make sure that you're keeping the blade lined up. You don't want to cut in at an angle or you're going to end up too high and it's not going to sit well. Just keep working back and forth along that edge. So we finally got that cut smooth. Just going to clean up that edge a little bit. All right, so we have both of our sides cut off. Now's our moment of truth. You want to sit these, you want to sit like this so that they follow down the car. It doesn't matter which direction you put them in. And that looks to me like that's going to be a winner. So that's going to allow me to keep the body intact. But when I want to, I can simply take the slats off and I'll be able to see into the engine bay. I don't think this is how the real car works. I think the real car, I'm pretty sure these are solid because every picture I've seen shows this entire rear clamshell just tilts back. But this is a compromise that lets me still see the engine details, so I can detail up the engine and not have to worry about making sure that I'm going to be able to actually sit this and that it's actually going to sit right, because there's, as far as I can tell, there's nothing really that's going to hold this back end, so I'm worried that the back end will droop or it won't sit well. So this is going to be a good compromise between the two. Now we're going to move on to opening up these vents on this front. So I've got a 1mm PC board drill bit mounted up on my pin vise. I'm just going to go right in. I'm going to start on this corner. And I'm just going to make a series of holes. But when you're drilling, it's kind of important that you follow the line of the body so that you're not chewing up the body portion. Once I have a series of holes drilled, I'm just going to take my knife and run it across and connect the dots. I want to be careful, you don't want to cut into the body itself. We're just wanting to cut along these holes. And then I just use my knife to carefully carve out the rest of that vent material until we end up with an open vent. And what I'll do after this is just take some sandpaper, get in there and clean these lines up. So we'll take some of this metal mesh, when we're done, we will glue it right back behind there, and that'll give us a much better looking mesh grill. I forgot that I had these UMP customizable sanding sheets, which is funny because I did a product review on them. We'll score it like we would our plastic. We're just gonna go right in here, got the bottom, we're gonna get the top, nice and smooth. That plastic backing is just firm enough that you can get some resistance, but it's still soft enough that you can bend a curve and follow a shape. Now we've got those nice and smooth, so that after we get the body painted, we'll just glue in from behind. We'll have a nice mesh grille. We're going to repeat that process on this back portion here. We're going to open this up as well. So you can see here, I'm drilling my holes. While I'm drilling, I'm making sure that I'm not pressing the bit against that edge. I'm drilling in, but I don't want to run the risk of grinding that edge and then having a real rough edge all the way around here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up off camera. Let's give us a nice clean opening. In that opening, we will be able to set our rear mesh. What we're going to do is we're going to sand out the back of this so that we can hollow out these honeycombs. This is a mill bastard file. It's nice and flat. And what we're going to do is we're going to very gently slide this back and forth across this file. It's very important that you keep your part flat. You want to keep equal pressure across the part. Work it a little bit, pick it up and check it, work it some more. Periodically, you want to clean out the teeth. And just start to see we're starting to make progress. And once you get it about that thin, you should be able to just very gently clean out that honeycomb with your hobby knife. Be very careful that you don't cut any of the actual structures. After quite a bit of time, you should end up with something like that. It is incredibly important you do not rush this process. If you do, you will cut up the honeycombs and you will break the honeycombs, or you will sand too much, you'll break the part in half. You have to be slow and patient with this part. And the final result should sit just like that. All right, here we are. The body is all ready for primer. I meant to catch the rest of this on camera, but it did not record for some reason. So real quick, what we did was we went ahead and we glued the bottom of these vents in using some Tamiya Extra Thin. I then went back over the seams because there was a seam here. So I went over that with some CA glue and then just sanded it smooth to get rid of that seam and get that nice and filled. We've gone ahead and panel lined all of our panel lines. Now I do this before I prime. I've mentioned this before, but I panel line the panel lines before because when I'm scraping the panel lines, I do sometimes jump out and sometimes I don't see that I've left a scratch in the body. So if I just hit all the panel lines with some panel line accent color, if there is a scratch like through here, it would run off and I would actually see that scratch and I would know to clean it up. So that's just a precaution on my hand to double check, just to make sure that I'm ready with my panel lines. We've gone ahead and added these photo etch pieces in on the door frame. Those were a pain in the butt to bend. I basically just bent them over the body of my hobby knife to get them rounded, and then carefully glued them and shaped them to fit, and then glued them in place. You've got to make sure that you match up that body panel, and you have to make sure that you also, when you glue them in place, you have to leave enough room to get the vent slats in. Speaking of the vent slats, we've also gone ahead and we've assembled the vent slats, which they are a little difficult to see. But these are them. I've seen them in bright chrome. I've seen them usually in body color or in black. Usually when I see these, they're in body color or black. I don't want them in body color, so I went ahead and did mine in black, with the exception of that door handle, which is always a chrome, so I left that the natural finish. These are going to sit right inside there. They are a kind of tricky fit, but they will fit in just like that after the body's been painted. And the next thing we want to work on is the mirrors. We're going to go ahead and trim the mirrors and the faces off of the chrome sprue, and we're going to clean up the flash that's on here. There's a little bit of flash on one of them, and then we're going to dump them into some cheap bleach. Do not use good bleach like Clorox. For the longest time I couldn't get bleach to strip chrome, and so I was using Easy Off Oven Cleaner, which is really caustic and nasty. And finally someone was like, what kind of bleach are you using? And I told them I was using Clorox. I'm like, no, get the cheapest store brand bleach you can find, as it's far more aggressive and strips the chrome off. This is just some hard piano wire. Stuff is very hard to cut. You usually use a rotary tool. I'll start with our 0.3mm needle, or drill bit. And you want to work your way up through your drill bits from the 0.3 up to the 0.6 to 0.7. 0.7 is going to be easier to get the piano wire glued in with. You can go ahead and just do up to a 0.6 and then just try to, while you're turning, wiggle it around and bore the hole out to about a 6.5. Be careful though, you can very easily snap your drill bit in half. For the ease, I just went with the 0.7. The super glue will actually take care of the rest. And be very careful, you don't want to drill through the top of the mirror, you just want to drill through the bottom. So we're just going to put a drop of super glue on our piano wire here and run that up into the housing for the mirror. And then we'll work on getting the faces glued in. The back sides of the mirror faces aren't very smooth, so I'm having to sand them to smooth them down, as the little knobs that are in the back do kind of interrupt with my metal post. Just using a bit of blue tack, pick up and hold the part. And then we're going to glue these in place with some super glue. We have our completed mirror. Just rinse and repeat for the other side. Finally, we need to get the mirrors placed where they're going to go on the body. So what we're going to do is put down a piece of tape to act as a guide. You want to make sure that it's even on both sides. Just measure it to make sure that it's even. And once you've got it lined up, go ahead and drill out the holes for your mirrors. On this one, you want to try to not go past the 0.6 millimeter bit if you can, because if you use the 0.7, it's going to be loose and kind of sloppy. It's much better to try to work the bit in. Just work that bit back and forth to widen this up a little bit. You really only need about an extra 0.5 millimeter. And the snugger this fits, the less slop you will have when it comes time to mount your mirrors. So now we've got both of our mirrors done. We can now get ready to paint the primer and paint our body. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comments section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comments section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.